Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of World Builders Nexus. Today, we will be continuing our discussion on Western Eratsael and building more on the lore, atmosphere, and themes of the West. If you are new, allow me to introduce you to the series as well as Eratsael. World Builders Nexus is a writing blog aimed at creating a new campaign setting for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons or any other system that you would prefer to play in. The world of Eratsael is the campaign setting that is set within a small universe including worlds for celestials, fiends, and elementals. But for now, we are focusing on the region of Western Eratsael and the feudal kingdoms of the North, the Riverlands, the Hold, and the Gale, all of which are under House Viserys. The lands of Western Eratsael are home to the humans as well as the northern races, including dwarves, giants, gnomes, and furbolgs, and it has a rich and diverse history that I hope you will join us in creating. But without further ado, let's get into what we have been writing this week. So this week we are going to be introducing a new series called Worldbuilding Quickies. They are going to be short and concise world-building videos about the world of Eratsael that are about things that don't quite need a full 15-minute episode. I can do these in like 4 or 5 minutes. So for our first world-building quickie, we are going to be talking about the WINTERBLIGHT, and it is a war and an apocalyptic event that spanned for 7 years from 201 ASR to 208 ASR. So the WINTERBLIGHT began after the mysterious life of a half-elf named Fennec Corsanther, after he transformed into lichdom and he waged a war against Rogar and the Order of the Silver Dragon. That is a holy paladin group. Rogar is sort of a god. I won't go too in-depth into all of that right now, but Corsanther drew the Holy Order of Paladins to Eratsael from another dimension called Mount Kale by casting an incredibly powerful blizzard spell just north of Steps of the First Men. As far as how he managed to cast such a powerful version of Blizzard, it's still up for debate and kind of unknown, but the spell engulfed the entirety of Western Eratsael, save for the Gale, just because of the Mountains of the Hold, although at the time it wasn't called the Gale. The entire West was in this massive blizzard that lasted for 7 years. The most notable battle of the war was the Long Siege of the Steppes, which is when Corsanther hid near the Steps of the First Men, and he sort of held it under this siege by hordes of undead that he would send in at night to terrorize the townsfolk. The battle was won after a group of no-named adventurers lit a beacon within the city, and an ancient god named Delvir, who was kind of a sun god of the West, she kind of returned to Eratsael and was able to aid Rogar in defeating Corsanther. Given that the knowledge of his phylactery was never discovered, Corsanther can't truly die, so Rogar, in this sort of Cask of Amontillado style thing, he locked him in this sort of jail it's its own plane. It's like this demi-plane jail. And Rogar removed his hand, his tongue, and one of his eyes, therefore making him significantly less powerful than he could have been before Rogar did all this thing. So there's sort of a rundown of the history. I want to go ahead and tell you guys about the combatants. First off is Fennec Corsanther. He led a cult of necromancers and managed to raise tens of thousands, or even more possibly, of the dead during the war. Corsanther, 6 of his kind of top cultists managed to transform into liches. Of course, on a battlefield, each lich is worth a fortune. But Corsanther and his cult mostly remained in hiding during the war, hoping to decapitate the Order of the Silver Dragon before a battle could really be fought. And they largely relied on guerrilla-style tactics and terrorist attacks on population hubs to keep the pressure on. Up next is the Order of the Silver Dragon, and that was led by a dragonborn named Rogar, and that is a holy order of warriors. They're from a place called Mount Kale. It's sort of a different plane of existence, and they're sworn to fight against evil undead. During the WINTERBLIGHT, the paladins and clerics of the Order of the Silver Dragon mostly stayed near major population centers, and they defended against Corsanther's terror attacks. And lastly, we have the population of Western Eratsael. And while the blizzard mostly caused the population to stay indoors for their entire lives during the 7 years, or risk serious harm or death, anyone who could and who wanted to joined Rogar in the fight against Corsanther. It's claimed that no one has returned from the war, but it was kind of too long ago to really know for sure. Um, Almost all of the fighting by Western Eratsael people was done within a city. And finally, I want to talk about the aftermath and the legacy of the Winterblight. Usually the most important part of world building, because that's sort of the hook. But so after the Winterblight, King Yafrik Myrel, who led Western Eratsael during the Winterblight and claimed victory, largely thanked King Solomon and his protection. Yafrik Myrel was the first open king who worshipped Solomism. He was the first king to openly worship Solomism, and he thanked King Solomon in his protection. And there was a large uptick in Solomism, even though it was still a minor religion. There was a large sort of uptick in it. This event is probably what's responsible for Solomism to become such a dominant religion in the West in the future. Rogar and the Order of the Silver Dragon returned to Mount Kale and their meat halls of Roghas. Corsanther is considered the most powerful necromancy to ever live, after a dragon named Nestrin, who's the father of necromancy. After the Winterblight, Western Eratsael entered a period of sort of rebuilding, and it was slow, but it was pretty stable, and nothing too crazy happened. It was a time of peace and understanding amongst the populace and amongst the 4 kind of sub-kingdoms. And lastly, Delvir, who, like I said, was an ancient sun goddess of the West, had returned after her shrine in the Steps of the First Men was relit. It's remained lit ever since, for over 5,000 years, I think. But yeah, guys, that about does it for the Winterblight. If you guys liked it, go ahead and leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more. Let me know what you guys think of this new sort of format for these types of videos. All the things that kind of don't deserve a full-on video will get these sort of world-building quickies. So make sure to let me know what you guys think about that. But that about does it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, have a great one. Bye-bye.